Hey everyone, talking about the top 5 best fragrances by Perfumer Carlos Benaim. Apologies for any mispronunciations. And I like doing these type of things where I'll look through everything that a perfumer has put out. Obviously, have not tried anything by, or everything I should say, by most perfumers. But for any that I've tried quite a few of, if I can find at least 5 where I'm like, yep, that would fit in a best of list, let's do it. And I take into account both like in terms of how it smells and also kind of how it impacted fragrance culture as well. So things can be on it for either reason, and I'll go over for each one. First, and this is in no particular order, Spicebomb Extreme by Viktor and Rolf. And this is one of the more accessible sort of tobacco vanilla scents where I think that, especially for a designer, smells really good, like vanilla, tobacco, and kind of pepper. Very like creamy and refined, and there's sort of a lavender calming cooling effect to balance it as well. This is kind of what I hoped Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford would smell like, whereas that one was just like, you kind of do have to like tobacco a little bit more to like that one, but this one is kind of like, oh, nice starter scent. And I think it's just like a classic, easy tobacco vanilla wear. Good longevity, moderate to good projection, and leans masculine for that one. Next, one of my favorite masculine, cheapy sort of designers under $100, Carolina Herrera Chic for Men. This has like warm spice combined with some tropical bright fruit in the opening. I really like that combo. Then it gets a bit more woodsy and almost like tobacco-y at times, but in like a refined way, sort of with some cinnamon. And yeah, I think this is really nice for being something you can get for like $60. And it came out, I think, almost 20 years ago, but to me, it doesn't smell dated at all. Very versatile too for wearing it anytime, day or night. And I've tried so many masculine designer fragrances, and this is one where it's like, okay, if I had to stick to a certain budget, I absolutely would wear this one. Yeah, leans masculine, moderate to good longevity and projection. Next, White Diamonds by Elizabeth Taylor. This one is feminine leaning, very vintage scent profile, even though this actually came out in the early 90s, which, yeah, I guess that is like 30 plus years ago at this point. But when I say vintage scent profile, I mean like at least 40 years before that in terms of what this scent kind of smells like. Like it smells like it could have easily come out in like the 1920s or something. And I don't mean that as an insult, just that this is not a typical 90s scent despite being released then. If you don't like vintage feminine scents, this would not be for you. And it's not like it's my favorite or something, but this was so popular, very nostalgic for a lot of people, both in terms of whether they wore it themselves if they were old enough at that time, or a lot of people have a family member who wore or still wears this, so they grew up smelling it. So yeah, this really had a big impact, sold a ton, continues to still be relevant today. So I think that deserves a spot on the list. Yeah, it's kind of like aldehydes, white florals, rose, lang lang, neroli, citrus, orris, and sandalwood, and then some kind of slightly smoky carnation and patchouli. Good longevity and projection, and leans feminine. Next up, back to another masculine designer, Ralph Lauren Polo Deep Blue Parfum. I'm not a huge fan of aquatics in general, to say the least, but to me, this is one of my favorite, actually. It has a lot more depth and also kind of has this green side to it as well, and doesn't get too herbal in that direction either. Just very fresh and refreshing, but not so cliche, just smelling like ocean water and seaweed and driftwood or whatever, like some aquatics. Moderate to good longevity and moderate projection. That one, yeah, leans masculine. And last, another designer, but not just like a designer, masculine cologne as much as that cliche category might sound for some of the others. This would be Six Place Sans Sulpice, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, by Yves Saint Laurent. And yeah, this is like creamy blend of leather, tonka bean, lavender, and other notes that kind of bridge the gap between powdery and like in a kind of chill way, but also upscale. Good longevity, moderate to good projection, unisex, leaning masculine. And I think it's one of the most underrated Yves Saint Laurent scents. So often these lists, typically when I've done them so far, tend to have included a lot more niche stuff. But this one, the ones that stood out to me the most by this perfumer were in the designer category. So I'm just picking what I actually think stands out the most. And this is what did for me. If you have tried stuff by this perfumer and you felt differently about other ones being your favorite, love to know which were yours. But I think that all of these smell pretty good to me. And particularly, for example, with Spicebomb Extreme and White Diamonds, those just made a big impact on fragrance culture in general and being very popular and worn by so many people that I always think it's interesting too to highlight, because those are very, very different type of scents, how the same perfumer can do such different stuff over the course of decades as well and continue producing classics. So yeah,